Draft Season Podcast. We're back with some more 2022 NBA Draft Prospect Analysis. It is your boy, Young Raz, coming live from where I do, Queens, New York. I got Sean 5K with me. Talk to him real quick.
Hey, man, and we here to talk about none other than Chet Holmgren. If you guys are not familiar, we definitely did an earlier video at the beginning of the 2022 cycle breaking down Chet Holmgren. Go ahead and check that out if you have not watched that yet. We talk about Chet and we talk about what he can be at the next level, and it's a very interesting conversation to talk about because I think Chet is in a very precarious position as he does come up into this cycle. I think he's probably the most maligned prospect in this class. I think he probably has the most naysayers just in terms of he's too small, he looks like a twig, he's gonna break. You can't post him up. What is his role going to be on offense? We've spoken about Chet in the past, but what would you make of Chet's year at Gonzaga? Positives and negatives, right?
I think for Chet, just what I saw on the defensive end for him in college, it gave me optimism that he'll be able to at least protect the rim in the next level as a weak side, help defender. Obviously, making the leap from high school as rail thin as he is, we wanted to see what he would look like versus, superior athletes that college basketball would bring. And there were times during the year where I did think that he was the best player in the draft still. I think he also shot it pretty well, and at 7'1", 7'6" wingspan, as they say, like that shot is unblockable. So he made up for his lack of strength on both ends of the floor with having that high release and being an accurate shooter, and then being able to block shots with that same reach. So he makes up for his lack of strength in a few areas, but I do think obviously the way that he handled himself against stiffer competition and bigger people was something that gave me hope for him as he continues along this journey. And obviously he's gonna have to put on weight, but I do think at some point that will come. I don't think he'll ever be the heaviest player, but he's gonna have to put on at least 20-25 pounds.
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting. Obviously, the frame aside, there's no telling how the frame is going to fill out. But I think for me, just starting about Chet, and we'll get into his strengths and weaknesses in a moment. But, I think with Chet, the big difference between being thin and being soft. And I think people mistake Chet for being thin as Chet being soft. And I think if you really dive into the tape, watch Chet. If you even go back and watch what he did on the grassroots level, AAU, and before he did get to Gonzaga, Chet is not like soft, man. And I think that's like my biggest misconception about Chet Holmgren. Like, even though he's not the biggest frame, and we'll get into where that actually affects him most on the court, but he's a fighter, man. He's a competitive kid. So I think that alleviates a lot of the concerns that I have for Chet. You watch him even in the game against Memphis against Jalen Duren, who used that. You could tell that Jalen Duren was charged up for that matchup against Chet. Jalen was a former number one prospect in his own right, and he knows that a lot of eyes were on it. And they went back and forth, and it wasn't just a thing of there were possessions where Jalen got the best of Chet, and there was possessions where Chet held his own. So I think that's my biggest thing for Chet. And I think, just talking about what he is and him as a prospect and what makes him so special. We're talking about a potentially franchise-changing defensive building block. I think Chet really did prove that at the college level. I think he has the ability to step onto the NBA court and be in the upper percentile of one of the best help defenders in the league and one of the most disruptive help defenders in the league. I think his defensive IQ is special, and I think you don't see a lot of the little things, Raz. And we can talk about somebody who we talk about on this podcast a lot. Even somebody like a Jaren Jackson Jr., who we love. We had him on my number one on my all defensive NBA team. We had him as a defensive player of the year candidate, high on that list. But we talk about like the dumb fouls he makes and things like that. Chet is extremely disciplined. I think we spoke about it on the previous video about Chet having a PhD in verticality. Shout out to Roy Hibbert and the Roy Hibbert School of Verticality. Chet uses his length extremely well to not foul and really just use that length to change. You know what I'm saying? Whenever guys really drive into the lane, Chet makes his presence felt, and guys have to, whether it's double pumping, he makes guys do things that they're not comfortable with. And I think that's really something that is going to translate for Chet to the next level. And obviously, like, you put like Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, those guys are basically, you put them in the post one-on-one with anybody, and they're coming out with either 2 points or somebody else is getting an open look. Those guys are matchup problems for anybody in the league. So I don't think Chet is going to be alone trying to figure out that calculus and how do you stop those two guys. You got to have the right personnel to really stop those guys as a collective unit. So I think a lot of and even we talk about the modern NBA and how stretched out the floor is. Another one of my favorite things about Chet that he proved this season is his feet. I think he has really good feet, deceptively quick foot speed for a guy his size. One of the most underrated things about Chet as a player. I think he's able to really show and hedge and ice and pick and roll coverages. And I think that alone for a guy like Chet, it's not only the rim protection. I think if you get somebody who's 7 feet that can also step out and guard a pick and roll and you know what I'm saying, play in that little sweet zone, and you know what I'm saying, also tag the big man, make sure he's not getting a little lob, and also disrupt passing lanes and deflect those passes. That's high level stuff that when you really watch Chet, these are things that you really pick up that he really does put on tape. So I think Chet is somebody who I think that was my number one takeaway for Chet as a freshman. This is something that you said as well that I agree with 100%. From probably depending on the point of demarcation for Chet, you could put a line in the sand, and for extended period of the year, he was one of, if not the best player in college basketball at the moment, definitely one of the winning basketball and impacting winning basketball. Chet did that on a consistent level on that Gonzaga team. So I think Chet has we could talk about some of the, you know what I'm saying, just and obviously it's aside from the obvious strength base, aside for Chet and the issues that are going to come with that, what are other issues that you would say, just in terms of fit or skill set wise, you think are the most important swing skills for Chet?
I mean, it's gonna be catch and shoot and free throws. I think he's gonna have the ability to get bigs in foul trouble, and I think he'll need to be able to hit those jump shots. And I think that let me pull it up. I think he shot 71% from the free throw line, or close to that. I think he has the ability with his touch to be better than that. So I would love to see that in the low 80s, mid 80s, if possible. You know, and that could just be, you know, repetitions. But I do think catch and shoot is going to be something that he's going to need to work on, because he's just going to be a big target on some of these pick and pops. And, you know, honestly, with his ball handling, I would like to see him, you know, with this positionless basketball that we have going on, I would like to see him work on at least attempting to be the ball handler on a big to big pick and roll and see what could come from that. So maybe reverse the first thing I said, and let's see if we can work on his playmaking. I feel like that'll be much better than his catch and shoot, because the catch and shoot can come along. If he can work on his playmaking, he's gonna be obviously a monster basically.
I think that's probably one of the more interesting points, because Mark Few did not use Chet in that fashion. And you talk about Andrew Nemhard, who, shout out to him, had a great combine. But if you watch a lot of the Chet grassroots stuff and what he did in AAU, even when he was playing with Jalen Suggs, yeah, he would do a lot of, you know what I'm saying, initiating, and like I said, he's capable ball handler for his size, which is crazy for a 7-footer. He can basically grab the ball, bring it up into the half court. Like, they didn't use him in that way at all. But I think in Chet, you know, we talk about like the Under Armour grassroots circuit where he crossed up Steph Curry and went viral on that. Like, yo, a 7-footer doing behind the back you know what I'm saying, snatchbacks and finishing in contact. That was sort of the appeal. And you know what I'm saying, I don't think it is like, honestly, it's probably like for anybody not named Nikola Jokic or the select few NBA players who have that capability to really initiate offense and in half court settings, because it's one of the most rare skills in the NBA that's just impossible to find. Untapped potential for a guy like Chet. He definitely has a couple avenues to really actually get there as a ball handler, or even I think just he's also like and just in terms of how solid of a player that he is, I think there's a lot of routes for him to just impact winning at the next level. And I think that just comes down to the conversation of where do you take Chet in the lottery. And even if I think one thing that people struggle with when we talk about the NBA draft and really being able to put in the box and get a good or synthesize the level of talent that is in each draft. Every draft is not going to have a Luka Doncic. Every draft is not going to have a LeBron James or Michael Jordan. But you know, I think when you're talking about building a roster and the expected value of production on a rookie contract and what you can expect from a guys, like I think Chet is the floor is extremely high on Chet, and you know what I'm saying, the sensationalism that he kind of possesses with him, I don't actually think it matches up who he is as a player, because I think his avenue towards impacting winning basketball is going to be a pretty narrow line. It's just more of a question of how high is the upside for a Chet. And I think, like I said, they didn't run a lot of post ups for Chet. They didn't run a lot of they didn't use him as a pick and roll ball handler. I mean, a pick and roller, which you could talk about just like one of his weaknesses. Doesn't set the best screens, and that kind of comes back to kind of just a core strength thing. And even in as interesting as you saw it, I think Synergy only logged him at around like 15 possessions as a pick and pop guy in pick and roll. They really didn't use him like that. I think in the NBA he's going to be used in a lot more versatile. And I think there's a lot more creative ways to where Chet doesn't have to average 20 points to be to kind of like be the player that he can be. You know, I think even if Chet comes in and average, like if he gets to like 14 points per game, I think that's a win for what he's going to bring you on the defensive side of the ball. Talk about the Magic winning the draft, OKC being at two organizations that Chet kind of fits or checks all of the boxes about what they're looking for, positional size and length. I mean, those two teams love taking those guys. I would see a scenario where he falls out of the top three, but on those two teams, like how would you see his fit and how would you like to fit in terms of maximizing Chet Holmgren as an NBA player?
Yeah, I mean, to me, he probably shouldn't fall out the top two, but I think between those first three teams, we know the Thunder would love to just run out that chaotic lineup of him and Poku and Giddy and Shai and Shea, and just have an all-world wingspan lineup that nobody can do anything with if it ever worked out. You know, but I think besides just the ridiculousness of that, I mean, I would love to see him, you know, reunited with Suggs and those boys down there. I think they have a bunch of pieces that they have to figure out what fits. So I think he obviously goes there and will get, you know, like you were saying on the Ivy video, you know, the keys to the franchise. I think, you know, he's somebody that you would start to see some stuff start to change around the franchise with a player like that on your roster. I mean, I don't think any three of the teams would be a bad fit. I do think I would want to see him on Oklahoma City the least. If we'll narrow it down. Like I don't know if I have one that's a favorite. I will just eliminate the Thunder because I know this is what they were trying to do. So fuck them.
Thunder Twitter. I mean, Thunder Twitter gonna come at you. That is at Polo Pivington on Twitter. If you want to send all hate tweets to Raz. But I think just in terms of like why I see Chet as it's gonna be hard for me to see Chet fail as a prospect because I think he's gonna be such a low usage offensive player. You're not really gonna have to do a lot for Chet. He's gonna get his offense off of putbacks. One of the most insane numbers that I saw just looking through his synergy statistics, they graded him out as like Chet is gonna be an excellent play finisher from day one. Just as a vertical lob threat, you put him next to creative passers like SGA or Giddy, they're going to be able to find him and hit those over the top passes. It's going to be really hard for defense to really, you know what I'm saying, stop those little push lobs, I would call them. But Synergy graded him out as finishing 80 of 100 attempts around the basket. Now, I'm no mathematician, Raz, but shooting 80% around the basket, anywhere you want to put it, even if it's not
good.
Those are non-post
good.
Yeah, pretty good. And I think that's just, I have my concerns about Chet are long term is about how good of a shooter is he going to be. And I think, like I said, if he just gets to league average, if we're talking around 35% from three, I think he's probably going to have to speed up his actual shot for him to really get it off in an NBA setting. But man, I'm a Chet Holmgren fan. I don't see the actual, you know what I'm saying, the polarization that Chet Holmgren actually brings to him. I think it's just one of those things to where he doesn't look like anything that we've ever seen before. And I think for a lot of people, that's extremely difficult for them to wrap their heads around. But all in all, I think Chet is going to be somebody who's going to make multiple all defensive teams in the future. Possibly that's going to put him in the conversation for defensive player of the year. And I think just the viability and the versatility that you could play an extra big with him. Theoretically, we expect him to space the floor. And I think he's also going to make the life of all his ball handlers a lot easier. So I mean, where did you have Chet on your board? If you had to put that in today, Raz?
Probably I'd have him number 2. You know, I would teeter back and forth between 1 and 2, but yeah, it's like, you know, but you said I had to put it in right this second, so I think, you know, potential wise, I think he's number 1. But there is something to, you know, being ready to come in and average a double. So, you know, with ease. So I think Chet for me is going to be number 2 if I had to put in my big board right now.
Same. I probably would have Chet at number 2 if I had to lock me in on this. Check back later for the official Draft Season Podcast Big Board episode, and you can see where we had Chet Holmgren on our final rankings. But this has been the Draft Season Podcast. If you did enjoy this video, make sure you are liked and subscribed. Run that algorithm up for your boys, and we'll be back soon with more NBA draft content for your head top soon.